And hi there, everybody. Welcome to all our partners, and welcome to those of you who are here, I hope, to see something that you will hopefully learn from. And it's good to have everybody here today, and it's good to be here. And I'm really excited about teaching cartooning and teaching the comic strip today. And it's something that I've done for most of my waking years. As a small boy, I used to read comic strips in something called a newspaper, which it's still among us, but not in great quantities. And would just dreamt of being on the comic pages, having my work appearing among the greats. And in some cases, it did. It appeared in some comic pages, and I've had several comic strips that I've worked on over the years that have had varying degrees of success or non-success, and but I feel that I've learned quite a bit. It's one of those things where the more you do it, the more things you learn from trial and error, and sometimes you learn more from non-success than you do from success. And but the whole thing is, the more you do it, the more experience you get. Anyway, let's maybe transfer over to the iPad now, and I'm just going to see if I can aim my camera to the pad here so you can see what I'm doing. And let's just make sure we can see everybody here. And I'll grab the right tool. I have an Apple Pencil here that I'm going to use for the exercise. I've got a little glove here that keeps my hand from contacting the screen and creating an image on the drawing that I don't want. So, and I've got my crib sheets here so I can refer to, so I can go through the lesson. Now, the comic strip, let me just explain the difference between the comic strip and a comic panel. Now, the comic strip is, here we're going to see, you see before you the screen of three panels here, three blank panels. And this is a template that I've created myself because if you're doing several of these things, you save yourself a bit of work by creating templates. And that's something I've learned from dozens of years of experience. So there is a difference between writing a gag for a comic strip and writing a gag for a single panel. And the difference being the comic panel is the one panel is usually set up visually. You have a situation set up because people go to the visual thing first usually, and it's setting up something, and then the payoff or the punchline would come in the text below, or sometimes it's just a visual payoff. You look at the picture, and the payoff comes during the one single panel experience, and that is beauty when you can do that. That is poetry when you can create that as a cartoonist. The comic strip is basically story oriented, in which case you have a beginning, middle, and end. So your story should have a setup, basically an establishing part of your story, and Tom, who is a very, very talented video editor and director and producer, he knows a lot about this as well. You start with the beginning, middle, and end. And you start establishing your scene, and then you have to follow the story through. You hit on a theme or a direction, and then there's a payoff or a finish of the story. So, and it's the same with comic strips. And really, in its simplest form, it's the storytelling, the storytelling love of labor. So, anyway, we're going to start today. I've already gone ahead and laid out a little story here. And on the left side here, we're just going to zoom in on that. You'll see that I've got one figure coming through a door on the very right side, and the person on the left is turning to look back. Now, this is using the techniques we learned last time about the drawing the character and the eye level and whatnot. So I'm just going to further maybe flesh out these characters a bit later on, but I'll just to show you the direction. This is someone entering the door and saying, something is being said here. The next part of the stage is the person that was at the door is sliding by the other person, obviously in a rush, or something's going on. There's some action, and then here we have the person that was in a rush to do something stopped and in shock, and the other person um, kind of blasé about something. So already it seems funny, although we haven't really put a story to it. It's and believe me, I've kind of thought about this. So first of all, we're going to follow through with these and create these characters. And this character here that I'm going to start fleshing out is doing something that I've done a million times in my life. And that's something I would just let you know too, is that personal experience, what you experience in your own personal life, is probably the best fodder for your comic strip, because it. Let's see. Let's just make this a flesh them out a bit more here, and we'll flesh this other person a bit more here. And so this is something, as I say, that I've gone through many times uh, in my personal life, and my in with my family, and obviously with my wife, who has seen these little vignettes of life for me. So we're going to create these people who may or may not be me, but they're certainly based on something that's happened to me, and flesh this out a bit more. And this is what I've done here is kind of laid out the house and in a way that I learned over the years in perspective, and that's something we can do at a lesson on a future time. The perspective and the perspective drawing and how you can add it to your comics. And anyway, that's what we've done here, and that helps to establish the scene, I feel, and give it a bit of stability there. So I'm going to just flesh out our character here, our Jeff-like fellow here, as we further the storyline. And the person here watching the character slip by, quiet. When you got a person in the comics that's fairly quiet and one person's fairly noisy, you just know that it's going to have an effect in the comic later on. It's and in any story that you may watch or follow or whatever. You just know that the character that's being quiet and being very patient, and there's going to be some impact on your punchline at the end, or the payoff to the story, if you will. So here we've got the three panels. We got the establishment shot, and not panel number one. Maybe I'll even put the numbers here so that we know what we're looking at. Panel number two, the character slipping by and kind of in a sweat, kind of in a rush to do something. And the great part about this point of the comic strip is that there's still a lot of room for modification. You can still correct things, like this guy looks like he's rushing by, but I could give him some gestures here that would make him look like he's really, really rushing, and put little accents in, like sweat lines and movement lines and whatnot. So this guy is in panel two here on the left side, very much in a sweat to get by, and character number two is very patient and just waiting there. And in panel number three, he's come to a complete stop, and the other character's saying something which will deliver the punchline. So the idea is, and I can tip you off because this is what I want to put in here. This happened to be just a few weeks ago, where I came home. I just remembered I had to check my calendar about something. Something was happening that day, and I had to just get home and find out what it was before, so I could get a good start at it. And my wife very patiently just waited for me to go through my little spiel and have my little rush here in panel number two. And then I said, well, I got to go to my calendar to find out what I have to do tonight. And she very patiently said, well, that's okay. I'll just go over here and sit down and wait for you to make dinner like you promised tonight. So that was the essence of the gag. And I had totally forgotten that I had promised to make dinner that night. So we'll see if we can formulate that into a gag here. And the good thing about Procreate is that you have a place where you can create, add text to your, let's see if we can find the tool here. Let's find text, add text. There we go. So you can go to actions and add. And the fourth one down is add text. And it will create a little text box that we're going to bring down here. And I have it preset to a little font that is like what I used to do. I used to do all these by hand at one time. Used to do all the gag writing and everything by hand, and even lettering the panels. So it's been quite a process for me to. It's almost like relearning how to write again. But so here I'm going to type in. I had no time to talk. And we could actually, if we select all the text here, if you just tap on that with your finger with your Apple Pencil, you can select all of the text, and then you can adjust the size and the type of text you want. You can make it larger or make it smaller, whatever you like. And then you can what I like is that you can also increase or decrease the leading, which is a publishing term. Actually, it's being in the newspaper business. That's something that kind of let's see, I'm having trouble here moving this box. I'm learning this program myself too, so it's a lot of fun to do this and to learn how to get it to all work here. So because I like that style and I think it should be consistent, I am going to go to layers and then go to duplicate. So it will duplicate that box, and I could actually take one of these boxes and move it over to the next panel. And I'm going to actually do that for all three of the panels. I'm trying to plan ahead here and give text. Gives you all kinds of selections to what you want to do. What I'm actually trying to do here is to move the window over here. Or the keep getting this coming up all the time. So let's just move that box over here if I can. I'll move it to the third window. We'll deal with that later when we get a chance, and we'll edit the text here. The really good thing about this program, this Procreate program, is by doing this. When in the old days, if you decided to letter your comic strip, you had to be pretty darn sure you were going to go with this text, because you had to not only do it lightly, pencil it lightly out, but you would also have to ink it and like finalize it, which was to me, it was often the scariest time in doing a comic strip. I mean, if I can say that there is a scary time, because really it's let's go to select all and we'll just redo the text here. So the text here was Let's just edit that. Okay. Go back to keyboard. That's what I wanted to. And that was to delete this text here. Hi, hon, no time to talk. Let's go back to, gotta check my calendar. I have something I promised to do tonight. And so that's that one. And I wonder if we can go, oh, now we can go over to this panel and I can edit this little window here. And we'll just select all that text, delete it. And the gag, of course, was she was going to say, oh, don't worry about it, hon. We're just going to don't worry. Ooh. I am just going to relax. I'm not a very good one-finger typist, but I'm getting better. This is good practice for me. Okay, so we have pretty good gag. Well, that's a question which I never know the answer to until I get to this point where I'm looking at the lettering and or looking at the writing. The process I go through is quite different from maybe other artists, but I go through quite a bit of this is probably the toughest stage for me is the writing and getting the timing to be perfect throughout the gag. And it's really basically very much you have to read through it and time it out. This may not be a perfect gag, but I'm going to make it the best I can in the time we're shown here. So I have the fellow coming in the door saying, hi, hon, no time to talk, ... Got a panel 2, got to check my calendar. I have something I promised to do tonight. And let's just oh. Okay, let's see if I can stop that. Just going to backspace there and go back to what it was normally. There we go. Don't want to edit text. Okay, I keep doing this. I got to stop that. Okay, let's try to go back to the third panel again. I always seem to have trouble getting back to this third panel here. Don't worry, I'm just going to relax before you make us dinner like you promised. So to me, that seems to be quite funny because and the guy over here is just like, what? Oh yeah, that's what it was. So we'll start to flesh out the characters a bit here and maybe finalize some of the drawing. First, I'll try to get out of these text boxes because they're, let's see, cancel that. Yeah, we still want to edit these text boxes. I'm going to keep those text boxes open for editing because I really I'm just never too sure of how I really want to finish the editing of the gag. So we're going to add a new layer here. We're going to do an inking layer. So let's zoom in a bit here so we have a bit. So I'm going to use an inking tool. Inking here, and the one I've been using a fair bit lately is the Pandini or Tinderbox. They're both actually very good. And I'll start to use the black pen here. I'm just going to increase the, maybe I will change that to another one. Let's try Mercury. That seems to be a good one. I'm just having, just to make sure I have the really strong lines here. Okay, line's a bit heavy there. Let's just try this. Yeah, you can control your brush widths on the left side on now the bottom, this bottom one here that I'm clicking on, the brush opacity can, if you're just doing penciling, you can take the opacity down. When I'm doing the inking, I like to have it fairly 100% around that. And for the brush depth, let's see, that's kind of, I kind of eyeball that. And I'm just going to take it a little bit more. So I'm going to draw the character on the left first, because I tend to do that when I draw. I tend to draw left to right because that's the way the story goes, and it's the way the flow of the strip. So we're going to create our character here. And we'll just, as you keep drawing, you will develop your style. You'll find your style. And I tell people that are just learning, don't worry about having a perfect style to start with. It's something that's going to develop over time, and it will evolve. It'll change. When I first worked on comic strips, I had this real thing about they didn't look um, they didn't look the same after a year as they did in that first year. And then it occurred to me, well, why don't I see what other artists did? So I would look at some of the strips I read, which were a strip called Broomhilda and Peanuts, and a couple of other comic strips that I read at the time. And, you know, I'll be darned, they didn't draw the same after a year either. So it wasn't something that was just me. It was everybody is like that. So I didn't stress about it as much. And one thing I will tell you is that over time, I just got to be a better artist. And now these aren't perfect doors, but I don't happen to have a straight edge. Let's see, I'll try a straight edge. Never tried it on an iPad before, a straight edge. I'm going to try it for the first time. You're going to see something. The concern I have is that it's going to contact the screen and do that, which I didn't want. So I'm going to have to figure out something for that, but I could maybe hold it away from the screen and try it again. That seems to be better, and I'm getting a straighter line. So there you go. You can use a straight edge as long as you hold it far enough away. I've got it about half an inch away from the screen, so it isn't contacting it. And now for this is going to be a little tricky because there you go. So it is happening. It's does work pretty good actually. If I hold the tool the right enough distance away from the screen. And here we have a little mirror or something on the wall. Could be just a hint of something. Yeah, it's certainly not the main part of the focus here, that what we're doing there. So, and of course I should have the balloon, the talking balloon here. Oh dear. And I'm just having my troubles there with that. I just need to have enough space for it to connect here. And our erase tool. Clean that up a bit. There we go. And for now, might have to change that later because of the writing. So let's go into panel 2 here and get. This is where we now you'll notice in panel 2 we've zoomed in a bit on the two characters. This is something if I know some of you may be doing videos and directing videos out there, because I know that's especially young people, that's their world now is videos and directing their own videos. So this is something you zoom into the main part of the action, so you're getting a little more intimate with the characters. So you've established your scene, but now you're getting a little more intimate with them. So this is pretty exciting. And you can get a little more intimate. It helps the reader too to be able to see a little more, closer what they're hopefully has sparked their interest. So our character that was at the door is quite excitedly rushing by here. And this is something I learned at Atkinson Film Arts when I was working on Teddy Ruxpin, is the use of hand gestures can really help you express emotion in cartoons as well as animation. I usually had characters just standing in one place and mouth movements, and in my comic strips, when I started to do animation, I began to see that you can use animation techniques in the cartoon or the comic strip, because it's comic strip and animation are very similar, the storytelling side of it at least. And okay, and then we're getting pretty close here for panel 2. And let's just do the same thing here. Put a little balloon around the text and point it to the person who's delivering the line. That's always important in creating balloons. And we went over a couple of the sweat lines, so let's try to get those straightened out here. Maybe show a speed line going past the other figure. So there's your panel 2, and this is, I'm kind of trying to get this done before the before we go to the question period here. But I think as I'm going along, I'm trying to express some of the the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing too, and certainly what I'm doing now is basically the grunt work of what you have to do to get a final comic strip, and it's so we have here. So this stuff we can finish up on later too if we want to. So let's try to clean this up fairly clearly here, what's going on here. So what I used to collaborate with another cartoonist at one time, and having done both the writing and the drawing part of it, I remember when I would be working with them, I would write the gags and they would basically follow through with them. And it was a double-edged sword. I remember thinking, well, I've written the gag, that's the easy part. But each artist has a way of seeing the scene differently. So quite often when they would do the drawing, they would do it in a way in which the punchline didn't work because they saw the action differently than I did, and that was a bit of a problem. But the flip side was, my work was done by the time this part came around, the drawing part, and that was kind of fun in a way. But I do enjoy the drawing part of it too. It's because you do have a chance to modify and correct things and improve things. And the whole thing, the whole process is that way all along. So let's take that other line there. Let's see what we've got here. And of course, after this point, we can colorize it, or we can add tone to it. There's all kinds of things that we can do later, but we have the basic 3-panel comic strip here, and so that's really cool. And we have the story here. Let's kind of review from what we have here. We have the opening panel, the establishing panel. Hi, hun. No time to talk. Slip over to panel 2, left to right. Gotta check my calendar. I have something I promised to do tonight. Rushing, obviously excited, but what the heck is it? And then panel number 3, the lady saying, "Don't worry, I'm just going to relax before you make us dinner like you promised." And then, boom. You can just imagine the sound effect with his reaction. So that is the comic strip. Let's review again we did the characters before, so we've got our characters basically looking somewhat the same. I did kind of rush through it because I was trying to show the concept of the comic strip and the whole idea of the story going from this, this establishing scene. It kind of, I feel it gets your attention with the perspective, and it draws your eye to somebody opening a door, entering the scene. That's always kind of an attention getter. And that's what you try to do when you're telling a story. What will catch your attention right off the bat? So that was my choice there. And the story's moving along. I kind of like the way it's moving. He's moving to the left instead of to the right. He's kind of fighting he's going against the flow. And I think it's kind of an unconscious way of saying, well, this guy is screwed up going against the flow here. If he was going the other way, he would be totally going with the flow. And then, of course, the punchline, he's totally missed, he's totally blown it. And the best part about writing and about comedy is being vulnerable, or knowing that your characters are vulnerable and what their weaknesses are and what their strengths are. But the punchline will almost always be pointing a finger at somebody's weakness. And that's to me, that's what I enjoy. That's our human vulnerability, and it's something we don't acknowledge anymore, which I think just makes it even funnier. When people don't acknowledge that they're fallible and that they make mistakes, and that we're so capable of erroneousness, and when we don't acknowledge that other people can make a mistake, it sometimes even makes it funnier. But anyway, so I'm going to. I hope that helped. The 3-panel gag, you could do it. You could have stretched out, made it a 4-panel gag. It's there's no rhyme or reason really. It's something you can practice and get better at, and I can practice and get better at. So anyway, at this time, I think I'm going to turn it back to Tom and see if there's any questions out there.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I'm gonna. We have a couple questions, so I'll ask them right now. So in terms of the size of the canvas, that's one of the first questions. Jeff, I'll bring it back to you.
Okay, yes. Well, that's a very good question, Tom. When I started doing this, that was one of my big questions, and the answer to that is look in your newspaper, and or whatever resource you want to. I guess if there's an example of the way you want to do it, look at that and then double that, make that times two. So you'll have a good enough area to draw in and to act in and to work with. So with these comic strips, these are the newspaper comic strips of my day, which are not your day. Um, Totally different now. I think there's no set rules as to the lines, but what my rule of thumb was the panels were about 4 inches deep by about just a little under 13 inches long. So the final strip would have been about just a little over 6 inches wide, about 6.5 inches wide, I think, in the published newspaper, by 2 inches high. So that's what I've tried to go by. And you know what? Anything goes nowadays. It's yeah. And they don't even do 3 panels or 4 panels. They can do 1 panel. They can do a panel in a circle. it's there's it, it's changed. That changed back in the actually back in the late 1980s when a feature syndicate came into the newspaper world called Creator Syndicate, which was owned and let's see, I don't know if it was owned by creators, but it was certainly the creators had a large part of input in it, and people like Johnny Hart, who great cartoonist, did BC for many years, was one of the keystone members of that syndicate. And there were no rules after that. It was basically whatever you wanted to do. And if a publisher wanted to publish it, they had to figure out how they'd fit it in. So, so yeah, it's if you want to set, I would say 4 inches deep by about 6.5 inches, or sorry, 12.5 inches wide, or a little under 13 inches wide, and that would reduce down to your typical newspaper comic strip of the day. But again, that's not a typical thing anymore. So I don't know if that answers your question or raises more, but
Yeah, Jeff, I think that was great. Yeah, that's definitely answers it. Here I have a creative question. In your third panel, how come we don't see the Jeff character's face?
whoa, well, that's okay. I could have done that. I felt it would be funnier to just show him in shock and responding, and you don't see his face. It does. I don't know if that works or not, but for me, it seemed like the way to tell the story based on what he was doing. He was kind of in his own space, going off in his own direction, and then it's like the brakes are on, and we don't see it, but we can feel it. And if you don't see his face, you can, it. To me, those little things make really accentuate a gag. We don't see his face, but we can see that the wheels turning, or we can see what's happening. So that's the simple answer to that. It was a very, yeah. If I sit back and since you asked me that question, if I'm observing it, that's what I'm thinking. That's where I was going there. In humor, especially, I feel the more you tell, the more you tell, the less you allow the reader to tell to themselves, because comedy is a two-way street. Comedy is the teller and the receiver, and I really strongly feel this way, that the less you tell the person, and the less you put, the more you allow them to put together for themselves, the funnier it will be to them. I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but I really feel, after many years of doing these things, that the reader putting it together for themselves uh, is half the battle.
That's great, Jeff. Thank. Yeah. No, that's fantastic, Jeff. I wanted to just ask, could you just show us the layers, just to kind of take us through what the layers were?
Oh, sure, yes. Well, the layers again. Let's just take some of these down here. So the layer I started with was the pencil or the rough pencil line. So let's just have a look at that. I did this before we had the did the lesson. So this would be the first way I do the strip. I would before I had any writing on it or any drawing on it, I would sketch it out in like a light blue pencil and lay out the design of the scene. So this would really be in my mind. I would have had the punchline and the whole script laid out in some form, probably in a very rough form, and so very much in pencil. So um, then the next step would be the text lines. So the first panel I would have done the lettering for the dialogue there. Oh, sorry, that wasn't what I wanted to do. And the text in panel 2, and I do these on separate layers. This is just something I've done myself. I certainly don't recommend you do it if it's not comfortable for you. You do what's right for you, but this seems to be what works for me because, as I say, I would be editing my dialogue here and the text in panel 3. So I would have the text in before I would even finish the drawing part of it. So, and before I would get to this point, as I say, I would make pretty darn sure this is the way I wanted it written, and the gag writing process is one I think we'll get into a little later, if you wanted to follow along in the sessions that I'm doing. But that's if we assume that I'm pretty sure this is where I'm going with this. We do the lettering next, because that's very important. That's the gag. The drawing is nice, but if you don't have a good gag, it's not going to have a whole lot of impact, in my opinion. And then we go to the last layer, and we'll erase the finding lines or the sketch lines, and then we do the inking at the different layers. So the final drawing would be without this the sketch line at all, but it is integral in the whole process. So so I hope that helped. That's that pretty simple process, really. And so you can the layers are on your top right of your it's just like almost like two white cards in the top left there, and you can access your layers, and they're really great to like with these text boxes. I was able to duplicate them, and you can do that. In the old days, I used to have to trace something and redraw it. Now you can just if I want to keep one drawing that I've done of a character and just put change it, maybe modify it a bit, I can just duplicate the layer and use that drawing again and reuse it. So it certainly has a lot of applications for things as you keep doing more drawings. So I hope that explains that. If it doesn't, let me know.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I think that's perfect. So yeah, let's we can wrap it up there. I don't have any other questions. But yeah, thanks again, Jeff. And I'll just let you say your goodbyes.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Tom. It's been great to do this. I'm sorry I feel like I didn't do a really great drawing, but I feel the comic strip process is really kind of intimate to me. It's something where when I'm in the middle of it, I feel it coming back. How the struggles I used to have, the gag writing, and one of the things I would tell you is to write your gags first. Do it on rough, like on sketch paper. Sketch it out first, and it really helped me to ask people that I trusted, whose opinions I trusted, to look at them and get their feedback on what I had written. And it really helped me a lot to understand what was funny and how I was expressing myself funnier. Um, because sometimes we get into our own little bubble, and I'm sure during COVID-19, you're all kind of seeing what I'm talking about here. You get in your own bubble, and you don't really see things objectively anymore. That's always a danger. You don't want to get into your own thing, and you're just relying on your own thoughts, but get other people's opinions on what you're doing. And if you just do it in a sketch form and just do like a doodle with with the text above it or something, and get somebody's feedback on it, and even if you ask them to edit it, uh, how would you edit this gag to be funnier? And then the drawing is um, really a separate beast. You you That's something you can work on your own, and it's really it is the as I say, it's the grunt work of this vehicle. Uh, the gag writing, it is time consuming, but it is nothing like the drawing. You really work hard on the drawing. It's the many hours you spend at the drawing board are spent drawing the cartoon. So that's just a couple of pieces of advice I'd give you going forward. And I thank you, Tom, for having me again. I thank all of you for putting up with me again, and I hope we can all do it again soon. And good luck with your stuff.